I would like to apologize for the detour after I stated in my Revenge of the Sith review that it was going to be the last Star Wars review I was going to do before I reviewed The Force Awakens. Now, this is actually not a review, but rather me talking about the special editions of the Star Wars Saga. Now, you already know that in 1997, the original Star Wars trilogy was re-released in theaters, although there were changes made to them. That was why they were called the special editions. Now, there were changes in that version that a lot of Star Wars fans were unhappy about, and I do not blame them. Although there were added scenes too. But again, not everyone was happy about these changes and additions. Now, in the 1997 edition, there was an added scene with Jabba the Hutt. Now, back in 1997, Jabba the Hutt looked like shit.
Maki cheese. Sa taong koltimalia. Lunid bibliotisa.
Now, there was also an added scene with Biggs Darklighter reuniting with Luke at the Rebel base. And I actually like this added scene because it took place right before Luke and the Rebel fighters went to destroy the Death Star. And I like the scene. It adds something that could have been in the original film. Now, there is actually one addition I am glad that subsequent revisions removed. And that is when Luke Skywalker honorably sacrifices himself rather than being trained by Darth Vader after Luke found out that Darth Vader is his father. Now, when he's falling down, now this is only in the 1997 special editions, you might hear a familiar sound from Return of the Jedi.
Come with me. It is the only way.
Now you know why it was removed in subsequent revisions. And of course, the 1997 special edition of A New Hope was notorious for one scene that was altered for the special editions that sadly have not been reverted back to the original ever since. All you Star Wars fans know it, and I'm gonna play it.
Yes,
I bet you have.
I prefer the original scene, myself.
Yes, I bet you have.
Oh, it does not end there. The Blu-ray edition made some unnecessary changes as well to A New Hope, such as Ben's call. Is some of the worst sounds I've ever heard in the Star Wars saga. And of course, the Blu-ray edition made some unnecessary changes to A New Hope as well, such as R2-D2 hiding in a cave behind CGI rocks, which caused a continuity error because of it, which made no sense. Next, I'm going to be talking about the alterations and additions to The Empire Strikes Back. Now, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. The Empire Strikes Back is the only film in the original trilogy of Star Wars that I can actually tolerate the special edition. With the exception of the 1997 special edition when Luke falls. Now first I want to talk about the Wampa scene because there was like 15 seconds of additional footage showing the Wampa eating something. And some people didn't like this change because it takes away the suspense or something. Well, here's the thing. It's only 15 seconds of added footage showing the Wampa fully. And the reason I'm indifferent to this edition is because I like the Wampa in either version. Now sure, we don't see a whole lot of the Wampa in the original version, and some prefer it that way. But when I saw the special edition, I thought, oh, this isn't too bad. I just don't really have a lot to say about that particular sequence because it was only 15 seconds of added stuff and then, oh, the movie just goes on. So, like I said, I'm indifferent about this additional little scenes in here and there. So, I like the Wampa scene either way. Now, there is one scene that I prefer the special editions over the original version, and that is Darth Vader's conversation with the Emperor. Now, in the special editions, the Emperor was played by Ian McDiarmid. This was to bring continuity to Return of the Jedi, but also the prequels. Now, in the original version, the Emperor was not played by Ian McDiarmid. It was some lady with makeup, and the voice was Clive Revel. Now, thanks to Return of the Jedi and the prequels, that scene is kind of a bit of a discontinuity. But then again, The Empire Strikes Back was before Return of the Jedi and the prequels. So, this is one alteration that I do favor the special editions over the original version. Now, there is a couple pieces of dialogue that does not really work with this scene, but other than that, just for the sake of continuity, I do favor the special editions of that scene. What I do not like about the special edition of The Empire Strikes Back is in the 2004 DVD version, which carried on in the Blu-ray edition, and that is Boba Fett's voice being changed. I don't know about you, but I thought the original voice of Boba Fett sounded cool.
No disintegration.
As you wish.
You may take Captain Solo to Jabba the Hutt after I have Skywalker.
He's no good to me dead.
You're being put into carbon freeze.
What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. Put Captain Solo in the cargo hold.
No disintegration.
As you wish.
You may take Captain Solo to Jabba the Hutt after I have Skywalker.
He's no good to me dead. What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. Put Captain Solo in the cargo hold.
Now, before I talk about the special edition of Return of the Jedi, I would like to point out that there were also other changes in A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back that I did not cover. And the reason I didn't want to talk about those is because the differences being aesthetics. There's really nothing much to talk about, and I'm indifferent to those particular minor changes. With Return of the Jedi, however, I am likely not the only Star Wars fan that would voice my disapproval of the following changes that I'm about to talk about. Since Jabba's palace was the first major plot point in Return of the Jedi, let's talk about the most embarrassing moment that came from the special edition. Now, in the original version of Return of the Jedi, there was some alien singing with some band in the background. The song was okay. It really wasn't anything special. With the special edition, we get this. Fuck this shit, I'm out. There's no question, I prefer the original scene because I don't have to sit through that shit. Also, Tatooine's asshole has a monster in the Sarlacc pit. I don't care for the addition. Now, there is one thing about the special edition I do not mind additions to, and that is the extended celebration sequence at the end of Return of the Jedi. And since the Galactic Empire was defeated, I thought this edition was nice, because it does give that sense of added finality, considering what was going on in the original trilogy. Now, I know this edition was meant to bring continuity with the prequels, and I don't mind that, but it was nice to see. However, it does bring up one thing that I did not like in the special edition, and that was the song Yub Nub being changed. Now, I actually kind of like the song Yub Nub, as even though this title of the song sounds silly, it did sound nice, and I actually like the song. I just wish they would have brought the song back in the special edition after the extended celebration sequence. Whatever. Now, all of you know about the last change in Return of the Jedi, which is Anakin's Force Ghost. Now, I don't even need to state my opinion on this because this is, without a doubt, the most unnecessary change that Return of the Jedi Special Editions has ever gotten. And that was changing Anakin's Force Ghost from Sebastian Shaw in the original to Hayden Christensen from the prequels. Now here's the thing. Anakin Skywalker became good again after he threw down the Emperor, sacrificing himself to save his son. He went back to the good side. So to change the original actor and replace him with Hayden Christensen from the prequels made no fucking sense. At all. Besides, I prefer Sebastian Shaw's heartwarming smile knowing that he is proud of his son than having to see Hayden Christensen's creepy smile. Seriously, this change made no sense, and I do not know why the Blu-ray edition didn't change the scene back to the original. Now, even though the alteration of Anakin's Force Ghost makes no sense at all, there is one other thing that George Lucas did to Return of the Jedi that I will never forgive him for.
Now, young Skywalker, you will die.
But with the Blu-ray edition of Return of the Jedi, George Lucas decided to add this. Fuck you, George Lucas! Don't even dare in telling me that this is just one little difference. That little difference ruined what was already a powerful scene that was perfect on its own. Adding something like that ruined it. And that is why I prefer the original version of Return of the Jedi. George Lucas has been tinkering with the original Star Wars trilogy to the point that he does deserve the backlash that he's been getting over the years. And he did retire from filmmaking a few years back, and he questions why should he make movies if all he's going to get is being criticized for making the movies that he wants to make. That isn't the point, Lucas. The point is people are criticizing you because you're putting unnecessary changes to scenes in the Star Wars trilogy that were fine on their own. And you decide to put in all this bullshit that does not work in the film. And one of your supposed reasons for these changes is because you want to bring more continuity to the prequels or connect it to the prequels. Look, the original trilogy can connect to the prequels without the changes. It's that fucking simple. Now, I wouldn't mind if George Lucas took a lot of control while making the prequels had he made them as good as the original trilogy. But unlike the original trilogy, the prequels are plagued with shit writing, bad direction, misdirected acting, and overemphasis of CGI that has not aged well. And you want to know something? Orson Welles, back in 1941, directed, wrote, produced, and starred in Citizen Kane, what is revered as one of the greatest films ever made. So yeah, it's possible for one director to do a whole lot for a film and actually make it stand out. George Lucas pales in comparison. Now, I will say this, George Lucas does deserve respect for creating Star Wars to begin with. So yeah, I'm pretty much done talking about the changes in the original trilogy, and these changes are exactly why I still prefer the original versions of the original trilogy. Because that way I know I don't have to sit through all the bullshit changes that Lucas put into the Star Wars trilogy. However, George Lucas decided to go back to the prequels and make a few changes, but really not as much as the original trilogy. Now, I mentioned in my Attack of the Clones review that Yoda was CGI in that film. And I also stated that in the Blu-ray release of The Phantom Menace, Yoda's appearance was entirely changed to CGI to fit the continuity with the prequels, which actually made sense, and I actually am okay with it because of the fact that, no offense, Yoda looks ugly in the original version of The Phantom Menace. So yeah, the only major change about The Phantom Menace is really Yoda's entire appearance in that film. Now, Attack of the Clones actually had a couple changes, and I must say they're pretty odd how they're done. Now, the only changes Attack of the Clones really had was a couple scenes had its shots rearranged. When Anakin and Obi-Wan were chasing the person that was trying to assassinate Padme, when they go through the power couplings, some of the shots got rearranged. Now, I don't know what the point of that was, and I don't really care about the change in particular. However, one of the more notable changes of Attack of the Clones is when Count Dooku escapes after fighting Yoda. Now, there was shots that were rearranged, and it's pretty obvious if you actually watch the original and Blu-ray editions, back and forth. So, they're odd changes to me, and they're really not much for me to comment, because I really don't care about those two changes in particular. And Revenge of the Sith had a few minor changes, and really the only one that's worth noting is the transition from Obi-Wan and C-3PO leaving Mustafar, and the transition wipe goes to Anakin climbing up after being burned. Now, there is a very good reason I bring that change up, is because in the original theatrical release, the transition was actually part of the film. Now, in the DVD release, there was no transition. It was just next shot. Now, the Blu-ray release does restore that transition, which I might as well be grateful for, because that was part of the original film to begin with. Now, Revenge of the Sith did have a couple other changes in there, but they're really not much for me to talk about, so I'm indifferent to it. After I've said what I've wanted to say about the changes in the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, I am done with my vlog about the changes made to the Star Wars saga. Now that I'm done talking about the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy and just finishing my talk about the special editions, next up is Star Wars The Force Awakens. Yahoo! If you like this video, feel free to hit the like button. And if you enjoy what I'm doing in this channel, feel free to hit the subscribe button. And as always, you are welcome to leave me a comment if you feel so inclined. And thanks for watching. And may the Force be with you.